The story this year is the spooky tale, and that's spelled T-A-I-L. The spooky tale. Ooh, there's a little catch to that. The spooky tale of Pruitt the Peacock. All right? Listen very carefully. All right, Pruitt was a wild peacock who lived far out in the jungle where most wild peacocks live. However, Pruitt was not as proud as a peacock, where he had nothing at all to be proud of. A peacock's great pride is in his glorious tail, with all the beautiful blue-green eye spots. Pruitt's tail was no more than a few scraggly feathers with only 2 eye spots. He was indeed a sad tale. And Pruitt was indeed a sad peacock. This is Pruitt with his 2 eye spots. See? It gets better, guys. It gets better. Phinehas was the proudest of peacocks. But then he had the most fanciful tail with many more beautiful eye spots than the others. So he was naturally the leader of the flock. Wherever they went, Phinehas always strutted proudly at the head of the procession with his tail fanned out in full glory. So we really don't ever really want to be like Phinehas, but this is Phinehas out in the front there. He's a real proud peacock. Proud as a peacock, right? He's the leader because his tail is so beautiful. Last and by far the least came Pruitt with his scraggly tail dragging behind him. But when it came to facing the tiger, the other peacocks were not one bit better than Pruitt. They were all equally scared. Fortunately, the peacocks had but one tiger to worry about. That was Travis, a scrawny, toothless old fellow. Other tigers had better things to do than chase peacocks and end up with a mouthful of feathers, but toothless old Travis could no longer afford to be choosy. He was down to such small game as toads and tadpoles. To him, a peacock would be a fancy feast if he could ever catch one. For such an old cat, he was pretty spry and ever so sly. So the peacocks always kept an eye out, eye cocked for old Travis. The second he made his leap, they took off like a shot to go fluttering into the treetops. It was always a close call. See, there's Travis. He was old. Once the peacocks had recovered from their fright, the first thing they did was check their tails for fear they might have lost a feather. Losing a tail feather was always heartbreaking for a peacock. Pruitt's scraggly, nothing of a tail was something he would never need to worry about. At least he thought. But then Pruitt was in for a surprise. His tail had more growing to do. Much more. One day he noticed that the eye spots had doubled in size. Fierce black eyebrows had sprouted just above them, and yet that was not the end of the tail. It continued to feather out. Before long, a jagged mouth appeared just below the enormous eyes. Then finally, out sprang a pair of feathery arms with wildly clutching claws. See, kind of like us runners, sometimes we're blossoming. It takes some time sometimes. My tail has gone wild, exclaimed Pruitt. It's turned into a green-eyed monster. What a terrible tail. But then after all, he sighed, I grew it, so I suppose I'll just have to get used to it. I only hope the other peacocks can too. See, sometimes we as runners and God's children, right? We have to be good with who we are and what we were made, how we were made. The other peacocks paid so little attention to Pruitt that a week had passed before they discovered his tail had gone wild. I should show you this tail in a minute. Look at Pruitt's tail now. Yeah, it's getting good. The other peacocks paid so little attention to Pruitt that a week had passed before they discovered his tail had gone wild. When they did, it hit them all at once. They let go with such terrified shrieks that could be heard all the way to Mandalay. It took 10 minutes for Phinehas to settle them down. Then in a fury, he turned to Pruitt. What's come over you, Pruitt? What on earth have you done to your tail? He squawked. Nothing, said Pruitt. It just grew this way. The thing is downright spooky, said Phinehas. It gives me the creeps. It gives me the creeps too, said Pruitt. But what can I do? Keep it to yourself, said Phinehas. Hold it down. Living out here in the jungle is scary enough without that spooky tail of yours popping up, so he's getting chewed out by Phinehas. With that scary tail. Tighten it up. Keeping his tail down was no problem for Pruitt, since he was not the least bit proud. Letting his tail drag down the ground had been a long time habit. But this was an entirely different tail, and not one bit droopy. It was springy. One afternoon, to Pruitt's surprise, up it sprang, and there was Phinehas, and Phinehas was furious. Pruitt, he shrieked, what did I tell you? But, stammered Pruitt, it's nothing but a bunch of feathers. Feathers can't hurt anyone. Feathers or not, said Phinehas, it scares the wits out of us. So you either get rid of that thing or leave the flock. Take your choice and let me know first thing in the morning. When Pruitt settled down to roost for the night in a treetop, his head was in a whirl. As awful as it is, he thought, my new tail is better than no tail at all. Yet, if I keep it, I must leave the flock and go wandering off all alone. Either way would be sad, so I'd better sleep on it, then decide in the morning. As Pruitt slept, he dreamed a weird dream. Out of the swirling mist came a teary-eyed elephant with no trunk, then a sad, long-faced giraffe with no neck, followed by a sheepish-looking camel with no humps, and finally a pitiful peacock with no tail. It was Pruitt! And close behind were other peacocks, all laughing at him. As the laughter exploded into wild, cackling, the tailless peacock suddenly turned into a lizard and slithered under a rock. This is his dream. The next morning, Pruitt awakened in a cold sweat. After checking his tail feathers to make sure they were all there, he fluttered down to the ground to join the flock. Well, said Phinehas, have you decided? Do you go, or does your tail go? We're both staying, said Pruitt. So there. Yeah, be proud of who you are. Oh, no, you don't, cried Phinehas. Come on, everyone, grab a feather, off with his tail. As the peacocks closed in, with beaks snapping, Pruitt whirled about and took off through the jungle. The chase was on. The peacocks were very poor flyers, so it was more of a fluttering, hopping, running chase. And although Pruitt was a bit smaller with shorter legs, he was a bit quicker. Think about this tomorrow, hey guys, on that last 1K. All right, think about this. See, although Pruitt was a bit smaller with shorter legs, he was a bit quicker by zigzagging in and out through the trees and darting under bushes and ferns. Pruitt managed to dodge his pursuers. But try as he might, he couldn't shake them. The peacocks kept right on his tail. Finally, in desperation, he headed for an open field. Pruitt figured they wouldn't dare follow. It was much too great a risk for a peacock to venture into the open, but there they did. The peacocks were determined to catch Pruitt no matter what. And as he went plowing through the tall grass, they were just a few steps behind and gaining fast. Pruitt was just about to get caught when all of a sudden, a tiger reared up out of the grass. It was old Travis. And just like that, the chase was over. It was too late to turn back, and with no trees to flutter into, the peacocks were doomed. They were too terrified to move. So they just stood there, waiting for the finish. Then just as the tiger was all set to spring, he let out a yowl of a terror. Then in a panic, Travis went leaping and bounding away to disappear in the distance. The peacocks were left stunned and bewildered. What could have frightened the tiger? They wondered as they looked frantically about. Then all at once, there it was, Pruitt's spooky tail! When Pruitt caught sight of the tiger, the tail sprang straight up in all its horror. There was no doubt but that Pruitt's tail had saved the day. We should show that picture. See? Pruitt's tail popped up and off with the tiger. Travis headed for the hills. When Phinehas finally found his voice, he cried, Pruitt, Pruitt, how can we ever repay you? There's no need to, said Pruitt. It was nothing I did. It was my tail. Just the same, said Phineas. You deserve a reward. How would you like to take my place? We would be proud to have you as our leader. Yes, yes, cried all the others, ever so proud. Oh no, said Pruitt. I'm not bossy enough to be the leader. Besides, I'd rather wander about just as I please. Then would you mind if we tag along, asked Phineas, just to keep you company? I don't mind at all, said Pruitt. Tag along if you like. From that day on, wherever Pruitt went, the other peacocks followed close behind, very close. And with so many faithful followers, Pruitt finally agreed to be their leader. They were behind him 100%. Of course, Pruitt knew why. But just the same, he couldn't help being proud. Now at last, listen, now at last, Pruitt was truly as proud as a peacock.